You want to swim in my pool without asking? Go right ahead, but don't come whining when you choke on murky water and a snapping turtle snaps at your toes. That lady thought she could waltz onto my land, mock my shoes, and turn my backyard into the local splash zone. Oh, she had no clue who she was dealing with. I didn't spend 4 decades raising catfish in Louisiana just to let some self-important, pastel-clad busybody named Linda Hawthorne tell me how to run my own pool. She crossed a line, and I decided to pull her right down into the muck with me literally. I'm Jim Tanner, 67, retired Army mechanic, part-time thinker, and full-time ornery old coot. 2 years ago, after my wife passed, I bought this place. Wanted to ditch the racket of the world and find some quiet. It's got solid bones, a wide-open sky, and enough yard for me to dig a decent pool. Not one of those shiny store-bought jobs. Mind you, this was a gritty, hands-on project. Concrete I poured myself, leveled with care, and finished with tales of fishing trips muttered into the tiles. Didn't ask anyone's permission. Why would I? I built barns bigger than this back home. First few months were paradise. Me and my lopsided grinned yellow lab, Buster, lazed on the porch mornings and floated in the pool afternoons. I kept to myself, mostly waved at the mail carrier, fixed Mr. Dawson's leaky hose once, even grilled for the neighbors on the 4th of July. But trouble brewed soon enough. That's when I met her, Linda Hawthorne, head of the Pine Grove Homeowners Association, or, as I call her, the queen of pointless regulations. She wore sweaters like battle gear and carried a clipboard like it was Holy Writ. Our first chat. She strutted up my driveway like a drill sergeant, hair stiff as a board, heels clicking on my gravel. Just here to welcome you, Mr. Tanner, she said with a smile that never hid her eyes, and remind you all exterior changes need HOA approval. I said, pleasure's mine, and offered her a rib from my smoker. She didn't take it a busy eyeing my pool. It started small, a note about unapproved water features, then a DULA 50 fine for substandard fencing. I ignored them, thinking it was all hot air. Then one morning, Buster's barking like the apocalypse hit. I shuffle out in my robe, coffee in hand, and there's Linda, floating in my pool on a flamingo raft, sipping a kale smoothie, sunglasses perched like she's at a resort. Beautiful amenity, she calls out, smirking. Glad you're sharing it with us. I almost dropped my mug. Lady, this ain't a public park. I built that pool myself. She laughed, and said, oh, Jim, you should come to an HOA meeting. You'd learn about communal property. Then she splashed me. I locked the gate next day, beefed it up too, figuring that it ended. But Linda? She's the type who sees a lock as a personal challenge. Didn't knock, didn't call, just snipped the chain with bolt cutters and took another dip, this time with buddies. 3 of them, sipping wine, Leah vying wet prints, empty bottles, and a towel screaming live, laugh, love. Buster was shook. I called the HOA, hoping someone there had a brain. Nope, Linda ran the show. Every complaint I filed drowned in red tape. Fines rolled in weekly. Unregistered water structure, non-compliant landscaping, even improper swimwear vy civility, whatever that means. Meanwhile, Linda kept swimming like she owned it. So I put up a sign, private property. Swim at your own risk. Trespassers will be recorded and fed to the fish. Thought it was clever. Linda didn't. She ripped it down and fined me for visual hostility. Can you imagine? Visual hostility. I tried talking sense, sat her down, explained the pool was mine, built with my money, not HOA turf. She just grinned and said, we'll see about that, won't we? That's when I knew it wasn't about rules. It was about power. She'd found her stage, and I'd handed it to her. For a week, I fought Fairfield appeals, snapped photos, wrote letters. Nothing stuck. Linda was a ghost, watching from her window, snapping pics, plotting with her cronies by the mailbox. I felt caged in my own house. Then came the breaking point. A scorching Sunday, music blasting. I step out, and Linda's hosting an HOA poolside planning meeting in my yard, chairs, sandwiches, a karaoke machine. She waves like I'm the Y-sider. Buster growls. My head throbs. That night, I sat on the porch, moonlighting the still water. It wasn't peace I saw, it was disrespect. I looked at Buster and said, this pool needs some Louisiana spice. He wagged his tail. Linda thought she'd won, thought she could steamroll an old man. But I don't fold, and I wasn't about to let my pool become her sandbox. I'd raised catfish for 40 years, I know bottom feeders. So I hatched a wild, swampy plan. If she wanted a community amenity, I'd give her one she'd never forget. Next morning, I was up early, Buster thumping his tail as I scribbled a list on an old burger wrapper. I hopped in my truck still reeking of fish bait and gas and drove 40 minutes to a feed store run by Big Tommy. He didn't pry, just blinked when I asked for 25 pounds of catfish feed, a dozen channel cats, duckweed starters, and the orneriest snapping turtle he had. Fish fry or feud? He asked. I grinned. Bit of both. Back home, Linda was prowling the street, squinting at my tarp-covered truck bed. I waved. She glared but stayed quiet. Good lit her stew. Took 2 days to prep the pool, drained half the water, shoveled in creek mud, tossed in duckweed and algae. Buster Supervise said, barking at leaves. I tweaked the filter to keep it murky. By day 2, it was a glorious green swamp. Next morning, I released the fish slippery little de VYLS vanishing into the murk. The turtle, dubbed Jimbo Jr., claimed a rock like a throne. I stood back, proud. It was ugly, sure, but mine. Linda didn't catch on at first. She'd gotten bold, sneaking in whenever she pleased. 2 days later, she strutted up in a sun hat and a gaudy robe, towel in hand. I watched from inside, tea in one hand, phone recording in the other. She stretched, kicked off her flip-flops, and slid in. The scream? Glass shattering. She flailed, something brushed her leg, and she scrambled out, dripping and shrieking, "There's something in there." I strolled out, sipping tea. That'd be the catfish. And Jimbo Jr., he's touchy. She gaped. You put fish in your pool? That's a health hazard. I shrugged. HOA rules don't ban aquatic habitats on private land. Section 4, Article 7. She stormed off, tripping over her towel. Next day, a fine arrived. Unapproved conversion of recreational space to agricultural use. I laughed, taped it to the fridge with a fish magnet, and fed Jimbo Jr. Linda went nuclear emergency HOA meeting, flyers about disease-ridden swamp monsters, rallying the neighborhood. Backfired hard. Kids loved the pool. Mr. Dawson brought worms. A teen, Jake, made TikToks fish grandpa versus HOA Linda, and they blew up. Linda doubled down. Health department complaints, animal control calls. Nothing stuck. He had permits, papers, even a fake wildlife certificate I laminated. She kept at it, installed cameras aimed at my pool. I got them removed with a city complaint. One night, I caught her sneaking in with a flashlight and pH kit. Testing for snapper levels? I called. She bolted, nearly eating dirt. It wasn't just about the pool, Anna Marie, it was pride. She'd misjudged me, thought I'd cave. But I'd served Ved Wars, rebuilt engines, outlasted worse than her. The neighborhood started mocking her. Her HOA pals bailed. Jake's VY Ral VY Deo, Linda gets snapped by fish grandpa sealed it. She lost her grip, but I knew she wasn't done. Weeks later, a letter came, not local HOA, but the regional council. Linda had escalated it. NVY Ron Mental Stability Re VYEW. I chuckled. Let them come. I've got proof, neighbors, and a mean turtle. If they push, I've got gators up my sleeve. This ain't over, it's just heating up.